Hey everyone, back tuning into today's first video. Going to be a lot going on at GaussOrbis today. This first video is going to be a mishmash of stuff. We're going to have a look at the central temperature because we've got the final number in from Hadley for February. So we've got the central temperature in covering the full winter period. Also have a look at the stratosphere, signs of another stratospheric warming coming up later on this week. And we'll have a look at the weather for the next week, 10 days, and the next month as well with CFSV2. So a lot going on for this first video. If you're interested in snow, and there is the chance of snow as early as tomorrow across some parts of the country. If you're interested in snow, come back to Snowwatch this evening because we'll be having a look on Snowwatch at the chance of snow both tomorrow and also on Friday and into Saturday. So that'll be on Snowwatch around 7 o'clock this evening. Between this and then, we'll also have Terry's month-ahead forecast for March. That'll be around 5 o'clock. So loads going on at GaussOrbis today. Do keep checking back for all of the updates. But before I get on with this first video, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all pages. Have a browse through widgets and click through the links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, back to me, do that video ads to those pages. They open up and content, we watch them, they'll close back up again. It's helping to pay for our website. So, as I said, we're going to start off with Central England temperature. We've got the number in from Hadley for February. We have come out for February at 4.9. So still a milder than average month. It's around a degree above average. Not exceptionally mild. Not like the December to remember that we had back in December when we came out at 9.7. It's the warmest December since records began in 1659. So we haven't come out anywhere near as warm as that, but nevertheless still a bit above average for February 2016. Of course, January came out a bit warmer than average as well at 5.4. So actually this February has been the coolest month of the 3 winter months, but still a bit milder than average. This should be enough to prevent us from having the warmest winter on record. The warmest winter on record was set, in terms of central temperature anyway, set a very long time ago in 1868, 1869, these 2 years just here. And I think we're just about preserving that record. I don't think we've quite beaten it. Whether the UK-wide temperature record falls, so it could well do, because that only goes back to 1910. But the winter of 1868, 1869 saw a December of 7.2, a January of 5.6, and an exceptionally mild February at 7.5. So despite the fact that December 2015 was warmer than December 1868. We've generally just about done enough in January and February to avoid beating that very long-standing temperature record from the Victorian era. But it's been a very close-run thing, and I might be a little bit wrong with the statistics, but I think for the central temperature, we've just about held on to that warmest winter on record in 1868, 1869. But whether the UK wide temperature falls, it could do, and as I say, the reason for that is that the UK temperature records only go back to, I think it's 1910. So I had a bit of a stratospheric warming a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it was quite a sudden stratospheric warming because it didn't reverse the winds in the upper atmosphere, but it was a pretty big warming, and we've got signs of another pretty big warming on the way over the next few days. So this is the stratospheric temperature forecast from the GFS model for the next week or so. We're starting off today, the situation today across the North Pole, and of course the stratosphere is right at the top layer of the atmosphere, and this is looking down from the top of the pole, which is just here. So the situation at the moment is that it's fairly cold. It's not as cold as it was earlier in the winter by any means, but still fairly cool temperatures in the upper atmosphere over the North Pole. As we run through, however, we're going to find that another warming event takes place. So the red colours begin to appear again in a similar place to where they was last time, a couple of weeks ago, from Siberia and then starting to push in towards the North Pole. This takes up to the 4th of March, so the end of the week. And then that warming penetrates into the pole itself. Here it comes on the 6th of March. It does look very significant in terms of this warming that's penetrating into the pole in the upper atmosphere. So we finish up on the 9th of March with a really very warm southern stratospheric temperature across much of the North Pole. This could be the killing blow for the polar vortex. This could finally bring some proper northern blocking. It was very late in the season now. There's a time delay on this warming taking place and then getting the blocking, so it may not be until the end of March into April that we see signs of effects from this warming event. But this is significant. It might be the final sort of killing blow of this wind season to the polar vortex, which has been a very, very strong polar vortex and has been partly anyway responsible for the mild winter and the very wet winter that we have experienced. So, big warming event taking place. We'll see whether that is enough to kill off the polar vortex in a few weeks' time. Now, since that warming event that took place a couple of weeks ago in the stratosphere, it wasn't a southern stratospheric warming. It didn't reverse the wind flow over the North Pole. Nevertheless, we have seen a drop in the temperature since that. It could just be coincidence, but we are having cooler conditions now around the time we expect effects from that to be felt. So it might be having some sort of an impact. And we can see with the GFS temperature precipitation ensembles that certainly for the next week or so, we're likely to be staying quite cold. So the red line here is the 30-year temperature average, and you see that after today, it is fairly mild today, but after today we're generally going to be below average through into the weekend and the start of next week. Dates from the bottom of the chart. As we get through into next week, we have a lot of scatter, but even then several members of the ensemble are still keeping it quite cool. But the general trend next week is probably to turn the temperatures milder. But for this week we have got quite a cold week coming up, and with precipitation as well. So you see we have got these precipitation spikes during this period where the temperature is below average. So there will be risk of wintry conditions. As I say, I'm going to look at that. I haven't got time to look at it for this video. I'm going to look at that in depth on Snowwatch this soon. It'll be around 7 o'clock. Do come back for it, because some places are in for snow, I think, tomorrow, and then possibly again on Friday. Beyond the coming week, well, I think there's a bit of a drying trend appearing for the second week of March. It isn't as wet as it will be this week. There's not much precipitation around anyway. Not completely dry. There are spikes coming through, but I think generally the trend next week will probably be to build a bit of a ridge up from the south and the west. So just have a look at the generic charts. This is the GFS for Friday, and we've got low pressure right over the top of the country on Friday. This is bringing the risk of rain or snow, and more on that on Snowwatch, so I won't dwell on that any further. We go through into the weekend, and Saturday sees that low pressure drifting off to the east, turning winds into the north and northeast. It's going to be a very cold feeling day on Saturday with a strong north to northeasterly wind and risk of more wintry showers. We stay cold into sunny. It's going to be a cold weekend, and low pressure to the east, high pressure to the west, again bring down that north to northeasterly flow. We keep it cold into the start of next week, but you notice high pressure is beginning to ridge through, so this is within relatively cold air. We'll lose the risk of wintry showers, but I think we'll probably still have some pretty significant night frost for the start of next week anyway. We go through to the middle of next week, and then we start to bring in milder air from the Atlantic. Still high pressure close to us, so it won't be turning especially wet, but certainly by day 10, which is Friday the 11th of March, we are bringing a milder flow up from the south and southwest. Probably a lot of cloud and dry weather in with that. The ECM looks like this, so there's that low pressure that could bring rain or snow at the end of the week. That gets out of the way by the weekend, leaves us in this cold and showery north to northeasterly wind. That carries on into Sunday. Will be a cold weekend. Go through to the start of next week, and it stays cold as well. And actually we renew the northerly flow on Tuesday, whereas the GFS at this point is ridging the high pressure through. ECM wants to renew the northerly from Monday into Tuesday. I think an area of low pressure is running down the North Sea, possibly bringing some more wintry conditions to eastern and possibly even southeastern parts of the country. However, by middle of next week, the ridge builds in off the Atlantic, still within cold air, so significant night frost, but turning drier with sunny spells by day. And then through to day 10, which is Friday, the 11th of March, high pressure is dominating. And again, you notice the flow beginning to be dragged up from the southwest. So overall, next week should see a recovery after a cold start, possibly still wintry. Next week should see a recovery in the temperatures as milder air gradually starts to move in from the Atlantic. Probably a lot of dry weather and generally just quite cloudy, quiet conditions. Let's have a look at CFS V2 finally for the coming month. As I'm going to do the month ahead forecast tomorrow. But this is how the CFS is looking anyway for the coming month. So week 1, which is the 29th to the 6th of March, 500 millibar heights, of course, looks like this. Got a ridge out to the west. We've got a trough across central parts of Europe and ridging up to the northeast. Bit of a messy picture, but it does place us on the cold side of the jet with the flow going something like that. So we're likely to be cold. And there could be some wintry potential at times. As we go into next week, later in this period, remember this is 29th to 6th of March, so this takes us into next week, and we do probably start to see milder conditions trying to return from the Atlantic. Week 2, the 7th through to the 13th of March, looking like this, ridging centre to the northwest of Scotland, actually, with a deep trough across Spain. So again, this is placing us on the cold side of the jet. The flow is going something a bit like that. Again, I think could be bringing in sort of northeasterly or easterly winds with this. It's a little bit at odds with what we're just looking at from those GFS and ECM charts, which want to have more of a southwesterly flow. This would have the flow in from the northeast or the east, and it would probably still be quite cold. The week 3 chart looks like this. This is the 14th of March through to the 20th. Very little change, really. Still high pressure centred to the north, trough of low pressure to the south. So you could still envisage winds being in from the east. With that, could still be quite cold. This is looking like a very cold month from the CFS for March. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 21st through 27th of March. And things are reverted to a slightly more normal pattern. We've still got a lot of blocking up to the north of the country, over the North Pole, but low pressure is centred to the west here, with a ridge building to the south, so it means that the flow is probably returning more to west-southwesterly. That should be milder, unsettled with showers, longer spells of rain, but that should be a milder week from the 21st through to the 27th of March, although again, watch out for that blocking. It is still fairly significant there up across the top of the North Pole. Whilst that remains there, the threat at least will be there for wintry conditions, possibly into the end of March. Saying wintry conditions, bearing in mind the end of March, getting well on into spring. So we're just talking about night frost and wintry showers, probably by this point, nothing too significant. So, that's how long with the CFS. Looks like a fairly cold month, to be honest. And as I think it was yesterday, I was explaining, we could well be on course for our first colder than average month since September last year. It's been a long time since had a colder than average month, 6 months ago, but we could be on for our first colder than average month since September last year. I wouldn't rule it out. We'll see what Terry has to say about that at 5 o'clock, and I'll also do Gaznovich's month-end forecast tomorrow. Shorter time frames, we're looking at a fairly cold week coming up with more wintry potential both tomorrow and Friday. Come back for that to Snowwatch at 7 o'clock this evening. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.